Ben Affleck, a very ungrateful narcissist, Part 3. We continue with an analysis of the behaviours of Ben Affleck to make a determination as to what he is. We turn now to matters of health. There is a history of addiction and mental illness in Affleck's family. Two of his grandparents were alcoholics. His paternal grandmother, addicted to both alcohol and barbiturates, committed suicide at age 46. His paternal uncle was an addict who died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. His aunt was a heroin addict. Affleck attended Al-Anon support meetings as a child due to his father's addiction issues. His brother is a recovering alcoholic. There is clearly significant problems there which would contribute to familial discord, and, of course, the lack of control environment, which is one of the two ingredients that is required for the creation of a narcissist. Affleck's own drinking became a concern when he was 15. His mother sent him to an outward-bound wilderness camp for at-risk teenagers, having first considered a residential recovery program. Affleck became sober in his mid-20s, stating in a 1998 interview that alcohol was dangerous for him. He received residential treatment for addiction in 2001 and maintained his sobriety for a couple of years afterwards. In subsequent years, he refused to discuss his alcoholism in detail. Potential denial, nullification of threat to control, and later described it as a period where he drank relatively normally. Whether this was the case remains to be seen. This might be diminution of problem. I thought, I want to just drink like a normal person. I want to have wine at dinner. And I was able to for about 8 years. Affleck gradually began to drink more, and eventually was drinking until he passed out on a nightly basis. Lack of accountability for behaviour, lack of emotional empathy for the impact this behaviour has on other people, sense of entitlement to keep drinking. Garner supported Affleck's struggles with alcoholism during and after their marriage, and said in 2020 that attending Al-Anon meetings empowered her to change the dance of their relationship. Affleck returned to residential treatment in 2017, and following a publicly documented relapse and intervention, again in 2018, in late 2019, TMZ filmed him stumbling on a Los Angeles street. He acknowledged the following day that he had a brief slip after over a year of sobriety. He later described the incident as embarrassing. "I wish it didn't happen," he explained. "I really wish it wasn't on the internet for my kids to see." Was this genuine contrition for his behaviour, or just false contrition because his narcissism recognised that this was the appropriate response that he should give when the behaviour was brought to his attention? Affleck's struggles with alcohol are well documented, both in terms of his own recollections and that which has been reported in the press. Of course, just because somebody has problems with alcohol doesn't mean that they're a narcissist, but it does demonstrate a sense of entitlement, an absence of emotional empathy, a lack of accountability. And therefore, if you'd like to understand more about the relationship between alcohol and narcissism, listen to my video, Cheers, Alcohol and the Narcissist, which will spread further light on it. It may be suggested that his inability to address his issues with this show a continuing lack of accountability and self-absorption. Affleck suffers from both anxiety and depression, and has taken antidepressants since age 26. He said he used alcohol to alleviate a constant feeling of discomfort. It's noteworthy that the effects of alcohol are akin to that of fuel. It's a fuel substitute, as I explained in the video, Cheers, the Narcissist and Alcohol. And therefore, Affleck's comment that he used it to alleviate a constant feeling of discomfort may well suggest that it was being used as unawarely as a fuel substitute to deal with the discomfort that's formed by the presence of the chasm and the emptiness within. Affleck remarked that it took him a long time to fundamentally, deeply, without a hint of doubt, admit to myself that I am an alcoholic. Does this admission demonstrate accountability, or is it merely facade management? He follows a 12-step program. During the press junket for The Way Back in 2020, Affleck opened up about his addiction, but stressed that he felt vulnerable and didn't intend to go on talking about this issue forever. Assertion of control, perhaps, saying, "I think the value, if there is value in me talking about being a recovering alcoholic, is that it doesn't have to be who you are. That doesn't have to be the label on your head." Is this a form of deflection, that he's suggesting that actually it's not that important? It was reported on the 22nd of June 2016 that Affleck appeared on the series premiere of Bill Simmons' Any Given Wednesday, and it was a rather bizarre appearance. A red-faced Affleck ranted about Deflategate on the HBO show, and even though it wasn't clear what was wrong with him, social media was quick to call him out for his slurred speech and angry tone. Sources close to Affleck commented that he was stone-cold sober, and the slurring is just how passionate he is about Tom Brady. However, that seems somewhat unlikely, and therefore it's more likely that he was once again drunk, and demonstrating a lack of accountability, and that his people are covering up for it thereafter. It was also reported that he and Simmons got into a heated, loud debate before cameras started rolling, argumentativeness. Accordingly, therefore, when taping started at 11 a.m., Ben was already fired up. In August 2016, it was reported that Kevin Smith and Ben Affleck used to be tight, possibly even like Batman and Robin, but apparently something had changed. Kevin was interviewed in New York City and hopped onto two of his favourite topics, Batman and Ben Affleck, and he provided information that it was quite some time since they had been involved with one another. He explained that it was some time that he'd had some interaction with Ben Affleck. Now, of course, this might just be because they both have busy schedules, but of course it is part of the narcissistic dynamic that a supposedly good friend gets shelved and is left on the shelf for some time. In April 2017, it was reported that Affleck was moving on from Jennifer Garner and was planning then to move out of the family guest house that had been his own place and was looking for his own pad. He had been living in the Pacific Palisades guest house since the couple had split 2 years prior, and as I mentioned earlier, this might possibly be a form of ever-presence, that he remained on hand in order to continue to assert control. The alternative is that he wanted to be there because of his children, not because he wanted to assert control, but because he exhibited emotional empathy. It was reported that Affleck had found a house that he liked, and it was told that the priority was that for both him and Jennifer Garner was to keep the kids together and the parents close as well. Apparently the place that he would move to would be close to the family home. Then, this kind of behaviour does demonstrate a degree of accountability, being there for the children, exhibiting emotional empathy for them perhaps by wanting to remain close and present even though he's no longer with their mother. However, it does suggest to me that it's more about control, that somebody with the wealth that he and Garner has means that it would be perfectly easy for him to buy a property not that far away so that he could still have regular involvement whilst recognising the boundaries. And it seems to me that it's more likely that his desire to remain in the guest house for 2 years after the couple had split smacked more of the lack of ending to the relationship and a continuation of the need to assert control. It exhibits poor boundary recognition, but it also maintains facade management, being passed off as a consequence of believing that he's there for the sake of the children, rather than realising that he could move somewhere else not too far away and continue the same role whilst respecting the boundaries between him and Garner. We continue in part 4 with an analysis of Affleck's behaviour towards other women and also his reaction to the Harvey Weinstein scandal, which proves instructive.